One of the biggest challenges when learning a language is vocabulary. You learn new words, and a few days later, they disappear. When you're learning several languages at the same time, this problem becomes even bigger. So today, I want to share how I learn and remember vocabulary while studying 5 or more languages. Not by memorizing endless word lists, and trust me, we all did that, but by using systems that actually help words stick. Let's talk about that. Most people approach vocabulary the same way they study for school exam. They memorize lists and they hope somehow they will still remember them by the day of the exam. But it doesn't work like that. No. I'll give you an example. If you're learning today 20 words, I am guaranteeing you, just by working on memorizing those 20 words, a week later, you will only remember maybe 5, 6 of them, and you will be really lucky. The problem is that memorization without context, without situation, does not train your brain to actually use the word. You need to be able to produce the word. You need to be able to understand the context of the situation behind the word so the word will stick in your mind. If you just learn words like that, even in your native language, you will not understand them until you give them meaning. And the meaning is very important. The meaning is the context, is the situation behind the word. Vocabulary isn't just about recognition. It's about retrieval. Let's explain quickly, very briefly, what is recognition and what is retrieval. So recognition is going to be knowing what a word means. Like you know and you understand the words, you have the definition. Okay. Retrieval, it's about producing the word when speaking. So you know what the word means, but you're able to use it in a sentence, in a situation, in a context. Most of the time, people will say a word and they have no meanings of that because they just memorize that word, they heard that everywhere, and they're just going to reuse the word without even giving it a context. Retrieval, it's more important. It's because you understood the word, but you also know how to use it when speaking to give it meanings. I have 3 principles that I use to help me remember as much as vocabulary as possible. My first principle is called active recall. What is active recall? Okay, active recall means that you're forcing your brain to remember something without looking at the answer. For example, you will be using flashcards, covering conversations, testing yourself into some things that you don't have the answer. You will go through a definition, you will go through a situation to get the word you want to say. Instead of reading vocabulary, I will ask myself, how do I say this in Portuguese? Because I would say, how do I say this in Portuguese? I am putting a context. I'm remembering myself asking someone or asking ChatGPT or asking internet, Google Translation, whatever is in front of you, something that this word will stay in my head because I remember myself asking, how do you say this one in the language? So it's just like an active recall, like you're forcing your brain to work on something, not just having the answer of that, not just having the list, like you're not just going to have a list with a lot of vocabularies and you just read them. You actually retrieve information in your mind and forcing your brain to work on it. If your brain struggles a little to remember something, it's more likely to keep it. It's like everything. If you're working with your brain and making it a lot of effort, the result of that will stay in your mind forever because you will have work on your brain to keep the information in. If you just read endless words, it's not going to force your brain is not making any efforts, you're not going to remember that. That's why they always say when you're at school to not just learn and just repeat classes or just like read about that and memorize. It's actually about to understand and produce the work by doing exercise and repeating all those things. That's what you have to do. So force your brain to do things so you can recall after that. My second principle is adding a context over list. I do not work on list unless word. I work on situation and I work on context. Instead of isolating the words, you make a translations list. For example, you will use sentences, short text, real situation to help. That's my example with the shower before. It's like I would say, instead of learning the word to improve alone, I learn it in a sentence like, I want to improve my Italian this end of the week. So you will say, well, this end of the week is a way of speaking, this end of the year, I will probably say. Your brain is able to remember stories and situations much better than just list of information. If, for example, you're doing a grocery list, if you're making like a list, if you don't have the paper with you, you will not remember what you put inside. But if you went through your fridge and you open it and you try to remember that, okay, for breakfast, I usually eat eggs and I like to take like a glass of milk, and then I almost all the time I have my coffee. You already remember 3 things to have, which is eggs, coffee, milk, probably sugar. So I already have this list, but just by putting my situation of the morning. If I'm remembering my morning situation and what I do in the morning, I will remember what I need for my breakfast list better than if I just write down on a paper like a word of things. So thinking about all the situation is helping you a lot, and that's it. How do I do with this one? Also, I do a lot of vocabulary theme. For example, I'm gonna concentrate on place a theme behind a vocabulary, and I will go for that. I will say, oh, today we're learning about shower and bathroom vocabulary. So I will need to learn words as shower, bathroom, toilet, sink, hot water, cold water, closet, mirror, I don't know, etc. So I put myself in a situation. I like in the morning to wake up and go take my shower. My sister always screaming from outside the bathroom. She never enjoyed the fact that the toilet is in the same place as the bathroom. My tub is always like very clean. I prefer a tub than a shower. The mirror is better when it's above the sink, so you can enjoy, you can see yourself when you're doing your makeup. The closet is always on the side. It's easier to take the products. You see, I'm creating a full story, a full situation, and I'm picking the words here, and I'm remembering all those words into this theme of bathroom vocabulary. So always try to do a context over list. That's very important. My final and last principle is to use words early on my journey. A lot of people like to wait. They feel ready to speak before getting a lot of vocabulary. Me, I think the vocabulary becomes permanent when you start using it, and the faster you use it, the earlier you on this path, the better you will improve after. Example, speaking practice, writing short sentences, journaling, reading, those are going to help you a lot to get vocabulary. When I'm reading a book in English, I am getting so much vocabulary. Sometimes I'm learning new words, of course. Again, it's a language that I'm still learning. Even in French, which is my native speaking language, I always have new words that I'm learning all the time. So in all the languages that you're learning that is not yours, trust me, you will still learn every single day. So as soon as you start using vocabulary and words, as soon as much better will be you speaking, you fluency, because you will have so many vocabulary that you already have in your head that you are not using because you are not feeling ready, but you already have built and you already have the list of work. So always think about that as something to do in the beginning than something to do at the end. If I learn 5 new words in German, I try to create few sentences using them the same day. Let's talk now about how do I manage that in multiple languages. When you study several languages, another challenge is not mixing them. Okay, mixing them will happen, and especially when the languages are very, very close and similar to each other. Italian, Portuguese, Spanish, very, very close languages, very similar in so many ways, very different on other ways, and very similar in other ways. So how do I do to not mix my vocabulary list on these 3 languages? I have 3 things that I do to separate languages. I will separate languages by doing study sessions. Study session is one of the bad things to do when you really want to focus on one languages. So I will say, okay, if I really want to focus on one of the languages, I would just do like a study session in Portuguese in the morning, Monday, a study session in German in Tuesday, etc., etc. So I'm just like separating by study session. I also separate notebooks. I have different notebooks, and I do not have a notebook for the same languages. I will have a notebook that you flip back and front. That will be like, for example, Portuguese and German, very different. I would not be able to mix those words. The sounds, the spelling is very, very different. is making it less possible to mix the words. And then I will have like another one with like Italian and English, very different also in the way of like words and spelling and everything like that. So always making sure like the words, the way I'm using the notebooks and the way I'm using the study session is very in separating the vibe. The last things I will do is like context. I will try my best to remember, not to remember the same context the same day, not to use the same theme the same day. If I'm doing present in Italian, I'm going to do past in Portuguese. So I'm just not always like in this, just getting close to the similarity. I'm trying to avoid as much as possible and separate as much as possible my study session and the languages by itself. The benefit of this is to help your brain to not get overwhelmed, because if you're separating by a study session, by context, and also by notebooks, you are making sure like your brain knows where it is. It's like you're in your closet and you know exactly which drawers to pull for something, and you don't have like everything mixed. The same way you organize yourself in your closet, the same way you have to organize your brain with languages. Make sure like this is the closet for that, this is the drawer for that, this is the drawer for that, this is the drawer for these languages, and then you're gonna open it and say, okay, today I need Portuguese. You open and you Portuguese. I will give an example with switching the language right now. Si je veux par exemple passer au français, dans ma tête, il y a comme une espèce de tiroir que je veux ouvrir, et je vais me dire, ok, ça c'est le tiroir pour le français, le vocabolaire est ici, je sais exactement ce che dois faire. Voglio passare con l'italiano, devo pensare direttamente all'italiano e trovare direttamente le parole che mi aiuterebbero a parlare l'italiano. Ho bisogno di italiano, lo farò direttamente. I want to go back to English, I would just like, oh, my brain is in English, I need to open this drawer, this is exactly what I'm looking, this is it. So it's basically saying to your brain, this is the closet, this is the drawers, pick the one you need and go. Vocabulary learning is not about how many words you're able to use in a day. Okay, it's not about that. It's about how many words you have and you still remember a month later. How many words do you remember next year? How many words do you remember next day, you know, like tomorrow, in 2 days, in few days, by the end of the week? This is how you learn. You don't learn just to learn a lot of vocabulary, you learn to remember. If you're learning multiple language, and I would love to know, what is the hardest thing about remembering vocabulary for you? Let me know in the comment. I would be very happy to hear that. And also, don't forget to give the thumbs up to that video if you enjoyed it. Thank you very much, and do not forget to subscribe if it's not done yet. The link is as always in the description box. We will see each other on Sunday for a new video. I hope you enjoyed that video. Bye bye.